Welcome to the Cash Flow Couple Podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Wendy Williams. How you doing? Here in the basement with my husband, John Williams.
So, happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This will release on Monday, but we record on Sunday. So, happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. We had a very, very good Mother's Day. We went to see my mother and hang out with the family for a little while.
Had those hamburgers and You had grilled chicken.
I did, yes.
But I had the hamburgers. I indulged. And the cake. We had cake and ice cream because Wendy's birthday is this week.
That's right. That's right. But we're not allowed to talk about that.
Yeah, we're not allowed to talk about it.
Because,
But we still eat the cake and ice cream.
That's about the only good thing about birthdays now is cake and ice cream.
That's true. Isn't that funny? You get to a certain age and then there's nothing to look forward to.
No, not so much.
Yeah.
But we don't really do presents or anything.
Well, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say nothing to look. That sounds so grim. I just mean as you're coming up, you at 16 you can drive, at 18 you can vote, at 21 you can buy alcohol. At 25, you get a discount on your car insurance. And then there's this long gap where there's nothing, extra. And when you turn 50, I think you get a discount on your coffee at McDonald's. So that was the context of my remark. Not that it's a grim future if you're past, 25? 36, you can become president. So that's a mark. That's a milestone.
So let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So today we're going to talk about knowing your market and the main reason you should know your market and the 4 ways to get to know your market. So let's talk about the main reason to know your market. Why is it? Because there's one really important, really is what it boils down to, right? There's one main reason to get to know your market, and it's to find opportunities.
Yeah, I would say that's what most of the things, we were having this conversation about different reasons to know your market, and there are specific reasons to know your market depending on what you're looking at, but most of them boil down to opportunity. We kind of boiled it down into one point, know your market because that's where you'll find your opportunities, right? And that's where you'll avoid things that maybe aren't good opportunity. What's the opposite of opportunity? Complete utter failure.
Disaster.
Yeah, I wanted to say that. Avoid disaster and find opportunity. So maybe it is good to have those two things. But the more we talked about it, the more it became, well, that's really finding opportunity, right? So I think you're right. I think that's the main goal of knowing your market is being able to locate opportunities.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter what you do in the real estate space, whether you're a wholesaler, a buy and hold investor, a fix and flipper. Everybody should know their market.
Yeah, and we had that discussion too. There are specific things you need to know in those different roles. And going back to basics, I would never say, "Oh, I'm a wholesaler and that's it," or whatever. Those are exit strategies. But even in those veins, if you're operating in that mode, knowing what you need to know about the market is different, isn't it?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Between those two things,
yeah.
But it still all comes down to where are my opportunities to wholesale? Where are my opportunities to fix and flip? Where are my opportunities to buy and hold? And I think that's, again, it all comes back to opportunity.
Yeah. So for the wholesaler, it's not really that important, I don't think. I mean, really what you need to know is where your buyers are looking to buy. And maybe if you're a more sophisticated wholesaler, maybe you can educate your buyers on where they should be buying. And if you know your market well enough, you know where those opportunities are.
Yeah, maybe that goes back to, bringing value to the table. We teach very simply, find buyers. What are they looking for? When you come across one of those opportunities and it's not something you want, then, look through your Rolodex, for lack of a better word, your database, and say, who would like this, who would want this property? And then maybe go to that person and as a wholesale deal. But what you're saying is, if you have somebody that buys in certain areas, maybe ask them why.
Right. Yeah.
Don't just take it at face value, educate, learn why they're buying there. Maybe somebody that buys in a certain area and this other person says, well, I only buy in this area. And you can ask them, well, what about this area over here? I know people that invest over here. Why do you avoid that area? Or why are you not interested in it? And maybe they just don't know the opportunities there. Maybe that's a way to add value to them.
Exactly. Yeah. And you as a wholesaler can add value to your buyers by educating them on those opportunities someplace else.
Yeah, for sure.
By knowing your market. Yeah. I think that's great. That's a great point. And as far as buy and hold investors, I mean, you're not going to want to hold something in a rental neighborhood. I mean, that just doesn't make sense.
I think if you were a buy and hold investor, you would want to hold something in a rental neighborhood.
Oh, I've got it backwards. I meant to say a fix and flipper.
Okay, so if you're fixing and flipping homes, you don't want to do those in rental neighborhoods.
Yes.
But the same thing, like what you were going to say, you don't really rent homes in fix and flip neighborhoods either, right?
Right. Because
oftentimes the rent doesn't justify the price. That's not the best use of the property.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Their neighborhoods, certain neighborhoods are more homeowner oriented rather than rental oriented, right?
Right.
And some neighborhoods are more rental oriented than homeowner oriented. So it's important to know the difference.
Yeah, and the only way that you would know that is by knowing and researching and observing your market.
Yeah, for sure. And there are all sorts of techniques to do that, and which we won't go into. But yes, that is a very good reason to know your market, depending on whether you're looking to, as you come across an opportunity, what should I do with it? Because I don't like you putting me in these boxes. I'm a fix and flipper. Okay, now I'm going to look for all the places I can fix and flip. Or I'm a buy and holder, and now I'm going to all the places I can buy and hold. Or I'm a wholesaler, now I'm going to all the areas where I can wholesale. I say you're all three, all the time. So as you identify opportunities, say, what's the best use of this property? What's the opportunity here? Is it to rent it? Is it to wholesale it? Or is it to fix and flip it? And so I would look at it that way, and that goes into knowing what is this area that it's in. What's the best use of this property? And you see people make that mistake all the time. They'll say, oh, well, here's something for somebody to fix and flip. And you look at it and it's in a rental neighborhood. So people aren't buying there to live there. They're buying there as an investment. And so that's a different customer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's basically the number one reason to know your market is to find those opportunities and to avoid disaster. So let's talk about the 4 ways to get to know your market. So the first one, I mean, seems obvious to me, is to look on Google Maps. I mean, you can do a lot of, quote, virtual driving for dollars or just virtual searching on Google Maps. It's a pretty good resource, I think.
Yeah, I was doing that this week actually, because I realized that, at least in Charlotte, it's not a large city, but it's large enough that you could spend some time exploring every nook and cranny, right? And so it's much more efficient for me to go on Google Maps and even just to look at stuff from an aerial view and say, this is in relation to this, and this is in relation to that. And, here's an area over here that's, up and coming. And then there's an area over here that's not. And maybe it's in the path of, I learned that word, that phrase this week, the path of progress.
The path of progress.
Yes. So, what's in the path of progress? Where are your opportunities? So you're
Yep.
going back to opportunity
Yep.
again. So I think that's a great way to do it. I was doing that actually this week.
Yeah, and in Charlotte, I don't know about anywhere else, but in Charlotte, it's a lot of street by street basis, and because one street could be, people are coming in and fixing up all the houses in the area or on that street, but the next street over is, the houses are all boarded up and people aren't taking care of their yards, and there's not that quite pride of ownership as you see just on one street over.
Yeah, I think that can certainly be true, especially in areas that are transitioning. You see that more, where they've gone through that life cycle of, it was new at one time and now it's kind of come full circle, and people are redeveloping there, and you'll literally see that in some areas of Charlotte where one street is $600,000 homes, where they've torn down the old ones, and then literally the next street over is the houses they haven't torn down yet, basically. And so there's a real gap between price points. And so, maybe that's opportunity, over on the next street. Maybe it's not, maybe that's the place you want to avoid, but you need to know what you're dealing with. And that goes back to knowing your market and looking for those kind of opportunities.
Is that what gentrifying means?
Yeah. So gentrification is exactly that, where neighborhoods are transitioning is a better word for it. But gentrification means that they're coming in, they're taking out the maybe little house and putting something nicer there. And it's a controversial topic because, the people that live there tend to be lower income or tend to have lived there a long time. A lot of times they're elderly folks.
Right. That's what I was
and they
thinking.
get displaced.
Right.
They
because the property taxes go up and
Exactly.
they can't really afford to live there anymore.
Right. Because now their house is more valuable
Right.
than it was before. And now and it kind of drives them out. And that's the controversy for it is, where there was this affordable housing, it's now gone, and the, quote, rich people have moved in.
Right.
And so it displaces those neighborhoods, and it's a real problem. It really is. But yeah, knowing that that's going on and knowing, that's what's happening in that area, you can identify opportunity on both sides of the fence, right? I was reading an article today, and this goes back to knowing your market, but I was reading an article today about, at least here in Charlotte in 2018, there's a real affordable housing crisis. And some of it is caused by that. Some of it is caused by just the fact that there are people pouring into Charlotte and there aren't enough places for them to live. And so that drives rent prices up. And so, people that are in fixed incomes that are used to certain income, certain rents, those rents are going up and they're, being economically displaced. And it's kind of it's a problem. So, part of that is knowing your market, knowing that that's happening. There's an opportunity there, right? If you can be the person that can help solve that problem, there's money to be made there, right? And you're solving a problem. We always say bring value to the marketplace and value will come back to you.
Right.
I'll get off my soapbox about it, but that's what you asked the question, what gentrification was. And,
yeah, that's right. That's right.
And that's where that led.
Well, that's interesting that you just said that, because another thing that I was thinking about, another way for you to get to know your market was to read articles in the local newspaper about what's going on in like the real estate section or even the whatever the city council is doing, and learning about if there's a baseball stadium going in somewhere or a light rail system going in somewhere. I mean, that could create some opportunities for you too, right?
Yeah, and those are things that are happening in Charlotte. We have the light rail now. They just expanded. They call it the Blue Line, but it basically runs from southwest Charlotte to northeast Charlotte, where UNC Charlotte is down to where we used to live in Charlotte Pineville. And they've connected that whole area now. But along that line, now you've seen development.
Yes.
Because it's a form of transportation to get uptown. You know, that's another problem we have in town is transportation. Where we live out in southeast of Charlotte, the main artery into town is terrible in the morning. You know, it's bumper to bumper type stuff. And that's one of the areas where they're looking to develop yet another light rail line to help alleviate some of that. So if you know that's going on, then maybe those are the areas you should be looking in now, because that's where it's coming to. You know, if you're behind the curve and they've already built the line, then that opportunity is there, but it's more expensive because now you're kind of like everybody knows about it.
Right.
So if you could kind of stay on top of topics like that and, you know, kind of be less, I got to make money today and more long term, you know, let's make money over the long term. Those are the kind of things you can look for and I think capitalize on.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it was Google Maps was a really good one. Following the real estate news or the local news in a local paper is a good one. And I thought about why not ask a real estate agent?
Oh yeah, for sure.
What's going on in the market? Because I think that real estate agents kind of have a very broad view of the market. I mean, Charlotte is huge. I mean, it's well, I wouldn't say huge. I mean, it's not like Los Angeles or New York or anything, but still, it's a larger city, and there are different areas of Charlotte that you really could be an expert on just one area of Charlotte.
Yeah, and I'd say the best agents are.
And that's exactly what I was about to say.
They have an area that they canvass and they know very well.
Exactly, yes.
You know, so if you're looking for a home in Southeast Charlotte, you want somebody who works that area.
Yes, and because it's too big to know everything about every single market. It's better to really focus on one particular area of the city, and plus they're so diverse. I mean, one area is not going to be like another area.
Yeah, this is very true.
So I think another good way would be to ask a local real estate agent, because they really have their eyes and ears.
Yeah, the good ones do.
Yeah, the good ones do. Yeah, I would say so. And the last thing that I came up with was bestplaces.net.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I like using that to see, and it will go by zip code. So if you have never been to Best Places, you can put in a zip code or put in a town, and it will give you some statistics about it, for one thing.
Yeah, it gives you like population and how many people are married, and
you know what the median age is, what the income
level. Yeah,
or is it growing or is it shrinking? You know, those are good data points to have. You know, stuff like that. It's a lot of it's census data, so it's demographics, it's income levels, it's is the area getting bigger or smaller? Like I said. But it'll give you an idea of whether that's a good place to long term get into, or maybe long term
get out of.
Just get out of. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Good point.
And then I've got another one for you. Everybody says this, but it's very true, and that's part of the reason I was on Google Maps yesterday. Is I wanted to see where are all the Walmarts in town.
Why are you looking at where all the Walmarts are?
Because Walmart's a giant corporation. They have people that's all they do, figure out where to put Walmarts, right?
Oh, yeah. I never thought about that before.
They're going to position their stores where their customers are.
That's true.
Right. So they're not going to put a Walmart in, a really bad area of town, probably. They're going to put it somewhere where, their store's not going to get vandalized, for example. but they're doing those kind of things. They're looking at population, they're looking at medium income, they're looking at location. And so if you can identify where are they putting new stores, then maybe those are the areas you should be looking in, especially if you're a buy and hold type person like we are. That's where, people are.
Oh, and so they've like done all the research and all the work for you.
Right. That's a way to, utilize their research.
You're
department,
leveraging.
Right?
Oh, nicely done.
Or somebody else said to me, look where the Starbucks are, but I looked that up and there's one on every corner in Charlotte. So that didn't help me nearly as much because there were so many of them. But, we talk a lot about neighborhoods too. Are they A, B, C, D
right.
type neighborhoods?
Uh-huh.
And we relate them to stores, right? So your A neighborhoods are your Nordstroms, your B neighborhoods are your Targets, your C neighborhoods are your Walmarts, and your, maybe D areas are your Dollar Generals. And it's not that, there's nothing wrong with Dollar General versus Nordstrom, but there's a different level of clientele, right? And so you can, maybe do that, maybe map all the Dollar Generals and then map all the Walmarts and then map all the Targets and then map all the Nordstroms. And it will actually give you a very good idea of who lives where, because they do that work for you.
Oh, that's
and especially look where they're putting new ones, because where the ones are now are kind of old news, right? But where are they putting new ones? And those are your growing areas. Those are your places where you might look for opportunity.
Oh, that's interesting. I never would have thought about doing that. I guess that's why you get paid the big bucks.
Well, it's not an original idea.
You stole it.
I stole it from somebody else. I've heard that from many sources, actually.
Oh, okay.
In studying and reading things.
Oh, well, I guess you should pay attention. If you hear it more than once, then you got to
exactly
pay attention.
Right. That goes back to that. I think we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
There are these common themes, so you listen to a lot of different sources, but then those things you hear everybody saying.
Yep.
Write those down.
Right. Maybe I should be
those might have, everybody agrees. It's like that 9 out of 10 doctors or 9 out of 10 dentists use whatever it is, Aquafresh.
Oh, me. That's funny. Are you saying you want to get some Aquafresh? Maybe dentists recommend.
I just like it that it comes out in different colors and it's like a swirl.
Does that mean that you like the swirl ice cream?
I do like swirl ice cream.
I didn't know you like swirl ice cream.
I don't eat toothpaste.
Emma used to eat toothpaste. Of course, she used to eat everything, so.
That's true.
Well, that is all we have for you this evening. We appreciate you joining us for another exciting episode. I hope you found value in talking about knowing your market. If you would like to know more, you're welcome to visit us on our Facebook page, The Cash Flow Couple, at The Cash Flow Couple. And you are welcome to email us, info@thecashflowcouple.com. We shortened it a little bit. So now we don't have to go to John and Wendy and spell out Wendy. And
you can still email us at John and Wendy at The Cash Flow Couple.
But it's just easier for me to say info@thecashflowcouple.
So info@thecashflowcouple will also reach us.
Yes.
And it's also easier to remember,
yes.
maybe.
Yes.
But it's definitely easier to spell.
So thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great week, and happy Mother's Day to all those mothers out there. Merci. À plus.